Out this red wine stain.
409 out better than Resolve Foam.
409 carpet.
Tickets now at Ticketmaster outlets are charged by phone. Southern Comfort presents B.B. King's Blues Festival, sponsored by the House of Blues Tours and Talent.
Comcast Night at the Fights. Exclusive pre-fight coverage of the ultimate revenge. Oscar Golden Boy De La Hoya. Julio Cesar Chavez. Go behind the scenes for live interviews, win prizes, and much more. Join Comcast for a knockout preview to the main event. Friday, September 18th, starting at 4 Eastern, 3 Central. Another Comcast original.
Every day is new. We tell you about the weather right now. How will it affect where you're headed? What about your plans? People count on us to get them through the day. I love that.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
Friday morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the Weather Channel. 10 minutes before the hour, you've tuned in just in time for Storm Watch. Of course, a part of Storm Watch is the tropical update, and you know we've been very busy the last couple of weeks or so in the tropics, but it's quiet this morning. That is the good news. We're back to normal for the most part. Mother Nature has worked so hard the last couple of weeks. She's literally starting to take a break, and we could certainly use it. Low pressure still off the coast now. Well, the interior regions, eastern North Carolina. This is the remnants of what was once Hurricane Earl. You know, Earl came ashore the panhandle of Florida in the wee hours of the morning yesterday, and it quickly moved north of the panhandle, so it started to dry out during the late morning hours and the afternoon of the panhandle of Florida. We had heavy rain in Georgia. Notice how that has started to clear out. We still have some moderately heavy rain, though, back over the interior regions of North Carolina, South Carolina, and eastern Virginia this morning, as the broad satellite picture shows. Some higher clouds still associated with the system as it's draped here across the mid-Atlantic, and the rain spiraling around it. We still have that counterclockwise spin here with our low pressure. And you can see from Richmond down to Raleigh and Durham, Charlotte, North Carolina, some moderately heavy rain. We've had reports of 3 to 5 inches of rain near the Raleigh and Durham, North Carolina area since yesterday afternoon. So flooding could be a problem in the local areas around Raleigh and Durham, so bear that in mind. Here's a look at our radar estimate now. This is basically a running tally of how much precipitation we've seen over the last 24 hours. Again, a good part of Georgia from Macon up to say eastward near Augusta, we had very, very heavy rain. Atlanta, you were pretty much on the northern fringes of the heavier rain here from Earl, but notice the yellows and the oranges indicative of 3 to 6 inches of rain upstate South Carolina into the central parts of North Carolina, including near Raleigh and Durham. So this system definitely had its share of tropical moisture, and we're still dealing with some wet conditions along the coast and the eastern parts of Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Now, gale advisories remain in effect from the coast here of Virginia around the Chincoteague area down to Cape Fear, North Carolina, the border of South Carolina. So water is still a little choppy, of course. The remnants of Earl, but Earl is no longer a hurricane, certainly no longer a tropical storm, but we still have some tropical moisture with it, and we think that that moisture will eventually move on out to sea. And we don't even think the big cities in the Northeast will see any wet weather from this particular system, as the bulk of the moisture will move east of Boston, east of New York, and east of Philadelphia. Other than that, we have quiet conditions. This is, of course, what's left of Danielle. It continues to move off toward the east over cooler waters, the northern Atlantic. The Gulf of Mexico is quiet, void of any tropical development. We have been watching this little cluster of storms here over the central Caribbean, and it's very disorganized. We have not had any signs of low-level circulation. Thunderstorm activity very sporadic, not even a concentrated area of thunderstorms. So we'll continue to watch this area, because as it moves into the western Caribbean, it will get into a more favorable area for development. So we'll keep you posted on that. Other than that, just a little weak system coming across the central Atlantic. Nothing organized here. Some bubbles, some thunderstorm activity, but again, nothing too impressive. And we've watched our latest wave as it came off of the West African coast yesterday. We have had reports of low-level circulation, of still some spin with it, but not much in the way of convection. So we'll continue to watch this, because from history we were watching Bonnie, and it had somewhat of a spin with it and not much convection until it moved into the western Atlantic. So we'll continue to watch this long wave as it moves off to the west. And speaking of the west, yesterday we were talking about Tropical Storm Isis in the Gulf of California here. Notice how it has moved inland and weakened quite considerably, but all of its tropical moisture is feeding into the southwest, Southern California and Arizona, and some areas could pick up heavy amounts of precipitation today. We'll keep you posted throughout the day.
In Earl's wake, residents in hard-hit parts of the southeast begin picking up the pieces. Will skies remain clear for the cleanup? The latest forecast next on Weather Center.
We argue all the time as to who has the better lawn, and really, Scott's does it for all three of us.
Now, during the summer, my grass takes a beating. What the grass needs is turf builder. It pumps it up, it rejuvenates it.
You gotta feed it.
Fall is the best time of year to put down Scott's turf builder.
Well, it's time once again for a look at Storm Watch at the top of the hour, and during the next 30 minutes we'll talk about the forecast for the New Mexico State Fair getting underway this weekend, also for the Cleveland National Air Show, and a couple of big craft fairs going on in the southeast around Atlanta. But now it's time for a look at the tropics, and also time to take a look at Earl, or what's left of Earl, because Earl is dissipating rapidly right now. Just an area of low pressure, a little bit of moisture lift with it as well, but the heavy rainfall is gone. Earl again is beginning to exit right, heading off the eastern seaboard at the present time. Take a look at the cloud cover again. We'll take a look at the clouds again associated with the center of circulation nearby, but again, this is basically all of what's left of Earl right in through here. The real deep moisture has rocketed off towards the northeast, away from the big cities, and that is going to be about the end of Earl. Take a look at the rainfall right now. Scattered showers at best from Norfolk, Virginia and Richmond, down to around Cape Hatteras and Raleigh, Durham and Chapel Hill, to around Wilmington, North Carolina. But overall, it's light rainfall for the most part. Heaviest rainfall seems to have really died away during the last few hours. But there was some heavy rain during the last 24 hours, like around Augusta, Georgia, places that really needed the rainfall. There was not a lot of heavy flooding with this system, and a lot of places that received some heavier amounts of rainfall are basically looking at drought conditions. So Augusta about 8 inches, Columbia, South Carolina just over 5, Charlotte just over 3, and you can see Raleigh, Durham just under 3 inches of rainfall during the last 24 hours. We saw some stiff winds earlier this morning, gusting up to 60 miles per hour off the coast of the Carolinas and southeastern Virginia. We still have gale warnings out right now for winds gusting up to 50 to 55 from, let's say, Cape Fear, North Carolina to just the southeastern corner of Virginia. Those probably will be downgraded as the afternoon goes on, as Earl begins to dissipate even further and begins to move on as just an area of low pressure like it is right now into the Atlantic Ocean. What else is going on in the tropics? We'll pick up the big, show you the big view right now from the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. We'll take you well on over towards the Gulf or towards the coast of Africa right now and try and pinpoint some active spots. We do have a couple of spots right now, and that's going to be in the Caribbean. Take a look at these clusters of showers and thunderstorms. Actually, a couple of waves, tropical waves right now. We've got one right here beginning to move through the islands, another one right in through here, south of Hispaniola and Cuba, beginning to roll their way on towards the west. Now, we don't think anything is going to be gelling this weekend in the Gulf of Mexico, but again, some of our long-range computer models are saying better watch these systems because they will continue to move their way on westward, and just maybe later in the weekend or early next week, something may try and get organized again over the southern Gulf of Mexico, just like Earl did earlier this week. So just a wait-and-see attitude right now. But it looks like for much of the holiday weekend, it's going to be mostly on the quiet side. So, but whatever you do, come back and check with us from time to time just to be sure something suspicious doesn't develop from these tropical waves. The mid-Atlantic right now, cluster of storms here, basically way too far south right now for us to have to worry about that. And coming off the coast of Africa, we saw a big-time wave right there during the last 24 hours, but even that has lost a lot of its convection. But still looks like a low-level circulation, at least a swirl in the cloud cover yet. So we'll have to continue to monitor this just in case it makes a comeback thunderstorm-wise, convection-wise, as it begins to move its way westward now across the Atlantic Ocean. What about ISIS? Dissipated basically over Mexico during the last 24 hours, but again, it threw a lot of moisture back up towards the northwest into parts of western New Mexico, also Arizona, Southern California, where it's been raining in Southern California off and on throughout much of the morning hours. Still looks like some rain around Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, Daggett, a couple of showers nearby in Las Vegas, Needles, California, and more to come once we get the afternoon heating to kick in this afternoon and again for tomorrow afternoon. Looking at the forecast for the upcoming afternoon, look at the moisture from Earl. That's going to be dissipating rapidly during the next 24 hours. It looks like a few more showers and storms right through later this afternoon over the southwest, while the middle part of the country is going to be dry. Well, lots of weather yet to come. We'll talk about the heat wave in the central part of the country and also the forecast for the Taste of Madison. That'll be coming up next.
In Earl's wake, residents in hard-hit parts of the southeast begin picking up the pieces. Will skies remain clear for the cleanup? The latest forecast next on Weather Center.
You wouldn't choose any new car without a test drive, but test drive a Catera, and you may not...
The heat continues to be a big concern for a lot of folks as we get into the holiday weekend. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Right now, the tropical update with hurricane expert John Hope.
Thank you very much, Janetta. And first of all, we'll take a look at the big picture here. And what we're focusing on mostly here now is the tropical wave in the Caribbean Sea. We're pretty interested in that, although I have to say we don't see any sign of organization so far. But we still have, we believe, the potential for that to develop when it gets farther west, more than likely over by the Yucatan Peninsula or perhaps in the Gulf of Mexico itself. It isn't going to do that right away, so right now we're looking forward to some very nice weather in the beaches of the southeastern part of the United States here. Hopefully that'll hold up over the Labor Day weekend. At least we don't see any developing tropical systems yet that we think will mess that up for you at all. We have a couple of tropical waves out here, one in particular out in the Atlantic we'll talk about a little bit more. And here you can see the remnants of Earl moving away, and also see the remnants of Danielle up over my head there racing rapidly over the Atlantic. Now, looking at our latest satellite picture, right there, the remnants of Earl finally moved off the North Carolina coast, and that continues to move off toward the east. And most of the rain is over with there, and the gale warnings have been discontinued over that area, so we won't have to worry about them anymore. Now, looking in the Gulf of Mexico, this trough of low pressure we see there, that's sort of left over from Earl, after Earl left. And we see quite a few showers developing along it all the way from the northeastern Gulf right down into the Bay of Campeche. So far, we're not seeing anything there that seems to be getting organized at all. And then we have this wave down here in the Caribbean. And what we believe might happen here is eventually over the next couple of days get some kind of amalgamation of that wave moving into this trough, which is about stationary there. And at that point, we could be faced with some possible development in the Gulf of Mexico. As we focus in a little bit closer here in the Caribbean, you can see a very wide area of showers covering a tremendous area here from the western part of Cuba down almost to just north of Panama, around the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, getting some pretty good showers today. But again, this is totally without any organization. No low pressure is developing. As a matter of fact, the pressures over the last 24 hours have risen, not fallen, and we know that we're not going to get a tropical development until we see falling pressures. That has not happened yet. So that tells us we have some time before that happens, and we take that time and monitor the situation. Down here on the intertropical convergence zone, pretty far to the south, we've got a little bit of a flare-up. No organization there that I can see so far. And then out in the Atlantic, this tropical wave looked pretty formidable about 24 hours ago. At the first loop in the picture right here, some good concentrations of showers. But as this has moved off fairly rapidly to the west, most of the showers associated with it have disappeared. So we don't have to worry about that for a while either. Now, in the Pacific, off the west coast, we have a flare-up here south of Acapulco. We think there's quite a good chance we might see some development there of a tropical depression. So that is going to be monitored very carefully to see. And the remnants of Isis, which was once a hurricane, moved inland to Mexico a couple of days ago, still very, very much with us here. And you can see the kind of the rotation around there. Some pretty good showers in portions of Southern California and Arizona. Here's yet another shot of the weather off the east coast of Mexico. Well, I guess we can't get that up, so perhaps we could just go back to Janetta here. And she tells me there's going to be some very hot weather here over the Labor Day weekend. So here she is to explain all that to you. Janetta?
All right, thanks so much, John. We are going to see quite a heat wave on our hands for you folks here in the midsection of the country, and it's spreading into the southeast as the front moves away. Our remnants of Earl move away. We're not going to have any rain in the forecast. We're just going to have a lot of hot temperatures. And actually, the heat has been extending as far north as Montana, Wyoming, on into Rapid City, South Dakota at 97 right now. We've got a lot of record-breaking heat being reported to Oklahoma City and Dallas, just to name a few of the locations. Wow, we're talking about temperatures well over 105. At least the humidity is not that much of a factor. Hey, you know what? Disregard that 45. It's not right. The temperature, I think, is 89 right now in Tampa, but you factor in the humidity in Florida, and it is a problem. In Tampa, for example, it feels like 102. All right, check out where the dangerous heat index values are going to be found tomorrow. So you'll need to plan for that and plan on being inside with the air conditioning. Stay tuned for Weather Center next.
We're following a heat wave in the Plain States where temperatures could hit the triple digits. The latest update is next on Weather Center after your local forecast.
I'm Mike at the Weather Channel. Time to look at Storm Watch, where we'll look at the active stormy weather confronting our country tonight. And we're looking also in the tropics with our tropical update. Let's begin our look there. We've had so many big stories the last few days. Things are a little calm by comparison, although still some areas of concern and interest. Of course, we had Hurricane Earl on one coast, Hurricane Isis on the other. Even what's left of Danielle is still out there in some form, no longer a tropical system, but a big batch of storminess still on the move. Also, what's left of Earl is making its exit as well. Let's have a look first of all at that. The circulation is pretty much even kind of gone. Not much really discernible here from what was Earl. Of course, a couple of days back, at this time, it was moving across around Panama City, then across the southeast, dumping incredible rains across parts of Georgia and the Carolinas, then offshore. There's a front in here helping to kick things away, kind of kicking things away. We made us get to nicer conditions in the northeast, like New York and Boston. We've seen that. Also, the moisture from Earl on the move. So we're dealing with that on from a further distance. We can just kind of stand back and look at that one leave. Also into the Caribbean, Western Caribbean, one wave is being watched that shows at least a bit of interest for us in this region to continue to monitor. Lots of convection and storminess here. Otherwise, nothing really showing great promise in about the next 24 hours or so. There's the coast of South America kind of as a frame of reference. You can see additional areas here where we are seeing some storminess. And a trough is on a slow move here, but again, nothing expected in this area in the near future. Here's one of the rich source regions of waves. That is the western coast of Africa on the Cape Verde region. See the convection of the storminess here? Pretty sizable area here. One of the things you have to have a number of things: a sufficient water temperature. Of course, that's in place in so many parts of the world with the heating we've been receiving in the northern hemisphere. You also have to have proper upper-level conditions. You have to have high pressure aloft, like way up there, so beneath it, a disturbance or an area of convection or storminess can begin to intensify in kind of a safe environment. You also have to have some sort of pre-existing spin. And that's one of the sources, one of the source regions for this. That's the Cape Verde region. Moving along here, convection on the south side with the actual wave moving offshore. This looks like a big mess, and there's a lot of storminess across land here, mostly. And we're watching the Western Caribbean, also looking at a little batch of convection here in the Gulf of Tehuantepec. And in the Pacific, just a couple of spots we're maintaining a watchful eye on. Of course, we did have Isis. It was Hurricane Isis that moved ashore in Mexico and dumped a lot of rain. That moisture still around. Of course, it was downgraded to tropical storm, then totally extratropical. So as it began to move, it was drug a bit northward, and we've been seeing the result of some of that moisture moving into Los Angeles and around Phoenix, and even to portions of New Mexico the last few days. That moisture is on the move, and it's on the way out. But we'll be stuck with our wet conditions in the southwest. Area of low pressure, the upper levels hanging out, going to keep the showers and storms with us for so many days. And to parts of Nevada, maybe you're heading there for the big Labor Day weekend. Good idea, maybe toward Vegas or Reno. You're going to have a great time. Two phenomenal cities to have fun in. But you could see an occasional shower. Take an umbrella. If you haven't headed out on your trip yet, you may need it. Around San Francisco, we should stay fairly dry, but not too far away from us. We could see some rain, at least around Sacramento. So if you're behind the wheel on Interstate 80, say, driving tonight towards maybe Tahoe, South Lake Tahoe, or to Reno, a little wet. Also in the southern parts of California, we've got our showers and storms with us tonight as well. Again, you can see the circulation here, a little counterclockwise motion, and you may be tempted to think, well, maybe that's what's left of Isis. Well, no, that's not really this. This is an upper level area that continues to spin, and that's why we are seeing the motion. But some of the moisture that's been pulled in here is kind of supplementing the moisture being drug in. This low pressure acting kind of as a moisture magnet, doing its best to drag in moisture. And it's done a pretty good job of it. Like we're wet around Sacramento now, and around San Simeon. Around Fresno, we had our share of the showers earlier, but notice the circulation is moving it away from us. Santa Barbara, we've seen mostly some rain showers. LA, a little wet earlier, although we're setting dry tonight. So if you're heading out here shortly around the Sunset Boulevard, maybe driving around the Malibu Hills or wherever you will be, looks fairly dry for a while. Elsewhere in California, including the desert, we've been seeing some showers around Imperial, but it's a little quieter tonight, except like around Blythe, where it's damp. Also, northern sections of Arizona and on to Utah's Dixie, around Cedar City, around Hurricane, some rain showers presently. Setting dry here for Vegas. Into portions of Florida, it's been a little bit damp off and on. May even see a little rain in the morning around Miami. So if you're going out to grab the paper, you can see the chance of rain. Then before the day is over, we could see more thunderstorm potential. Out around Orlando tonight, maybe some stray sprinkles. Most of our rain is just off to our west presently. Look at the big picture here. You can see a risk of strong storms may linger here between now and noon. That's what this graphic covers, the time period between now and noon. Also into portions of Florida, not out of the question, we could see some rumbles of thunder as well. Let's put it back together. Look at the big picture. Obviously, area low pressure pretty evident here. A little wet into Florida, a few sprinkles elsewhere, and what's left of Earl is on the way away from the coast. Hey, let's talk more about the holiday weekend with Weather Center next.
Showers have been plaguing the western U.S. What does that mean for the Labor Day weekend? Weather Center is coming up after your local forecast.
Are you paying too much for prescription?